What do you think about that transition over from the merchandising side? Any advantage in sort of your current role?
On this side of the business, you understand that every single one of our owners, they're like chief, cook and bottle washer. They're doing everything for their organization. One of the biggest challenges we have is kind of figuring out what message to deliver and what is the most important thing. And that comes with just listening to the members' needs, not just trying to hit them with a fire hose of information.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. One of the things I really enjoy and appreciate about being able to host the podcast and doing it for the nationwide family here is that the individuals you get to talk to, not just the retail side is one thing, and I think I'd always say that member conversations are some of my most favorite, and vendors close behind, and then you get to the NMG team and the personalities and the backgrounds here are so vastly, they vary, and there's a lot of just incredible knowledge and expertise on this team that, you get to sit down with some people and pick their brains and learn so much, not just about their backgrounds and kind of what they do, but, how they're able to make a difference in our retailers' daily lives and their businesses and bring a lot to the table for them. And just to see them pull strings here at Nationwide and kind of the work that this team does is always fun to, I think feature on a podcast and be able to share, that person or that team's knowledge. And today's no different. We got Patrick Maloney, someone who's been here, crazy to think, but less than a decade, 9.5 years as we're having this podcast with him, our EVP of membership here at Nationwide Marketing Group. And someone that feels like, he's had more than a decade's worth of impact on the independent retail channel, but we saw him, start on the appliance and the merchandising side, and the last couple of years has been working with our events team and the membership side and our MSM team, the field team here, to really help them make the best experience for our members, from whether it is on the event side or making sure that they know what the tools that are available to them, and the programs from the merchandising team, and back down to business and financial services and all the other offerings that are available, kind of helping make sense and help figure out what it is that our members need, and what levers they can pull to move their businesses forward a little bit at a time each day. So awesome to have Patrick. We dove into, we're just off of Primetime not too long ago, able to talk about that experience and what he heard from members down in Orlando, through to, the tools that he's most excited about, the passion projects that he's working on here at Nationwide, and chief among them being Prime Metrics and everything that's going on there, and seeing the impact that's had on members' businesses. So lots to dive into. I had a lot of fun talking with PJ, always a great guy to sit down with and learn from. So excited to share that conversation with you here. So let's just dive into it. This is Patrick Maloney, our EVP of membership here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and it's if you're watching the video version, it might be a battle of the short sleeve tees. Is that or a short sleeve button up? What we got going on? Oh, it's rolled up. All right. Well, the battle of the button ups over here. So mine is not buttoned up, but I'm trying to hang on to summer here. The bright colors. You got the early spring vibes going, Mr. Patrick Maloney.
I'm trying to draw attention away from my face.
Hey, every day, man. Me too. I hear you. But no, I appreciate you hopping on early this morning and getting ready to chat with us on a podcast here. Our EVP of membership jumping into the podcast, and I think this is 2 weeks in a row now. I've had someone that I've podcasted with in a previous life, but not on this podcast. So it's nice to be able to have you on here and do this for the Nationwide family.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, for those that don't know, aside from being someone that has no problem, making height jokes in front of 1,000 of our friends in Orlando, what would you say? What's the brief background on Patrick Maloney and who you are, and kind of a brief background on you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I don't even notice that I'd say those things, and somebody, like 4 people come up and be like, "Oh man, I love that you can make those jokes." I'm like, "What jokes?" Yeah. So. Hey, and I'm short, so what are you going to do? So, yes, first of all, thanks for having me. I've been with Nationwide 9.5 years, so 9 years and 6 months this month. and have done a couple different things. Currently, I manage our field team and our new events team. So we've got, a field team of about 50 folks, that are in the market every single day, working hand in hand with our members and, trying to solve real world problems. The cool thing about it is they're a conduit for us to get two-way communication to our members, right? So whether it's, us saying, hey, this is the latest and greatest thing, but probably more importantly, we get information back from our members, that we can make actionable, right? Here's a real world challenge that we need a solution for. So it's been a very rewarding role for me and working with, this really uber talented team of folks out in the field. When I first started with Nationwide, I worked in the merchandising piece of the business. So I ran our appliance business for several years, and then I took over all of merchandising over all the categories. So there's not a lot going on in this head, but there's a lot of merchandising and kind of, member first focus that I've learned, through the years of being here.
Well, what do you think about that transition over from the merchandising side? Any advantage in sort of your current role?
Yeah, for sure. I would say this, and this is probably, it's funny, Tom Hickman, our president, and I, when we look back at our careers, we've had these kind of, they've kind of paralleled. We never worked together until we got to Nationwide, but I would say, both of us had manufacturing backgrounds, right? Yep. So we, he was on the CE side of the business, I was on the appliance side of the business, and then both had some retail experience, and then jumped onto this side of the business. So, as those kind of things in your mind, you kind of know how the manufacturer works, and kind of what the retailer needs, and it's very similar even within this organization, right? As we're with each merchandiser, it's the appliance deal or the furniture and bedding deal. It's the most important thing that, we've got to get out. But on this side of the business, you understand that, these guys are, every single one of our owners, they're like chief, cook and bottle washer. They're doing everything for their organization every single day, right? They turn the sign open.
Yep.
They make sure the fuel's in the truck and the insurance is paid. And sometimes, where you think it's the most important thing, you've got to rush this to them. They've got other things going on in their businesses. So, one of the biggest challenges we have is kind of figuring out what message to deliver and what is the most important thing. And that comes with just listening to the members' needs and saying, okay, we've got this or we've got that for you, not just trying to hit them with a fire hose of information.
Right. Which I know can certainly be a struggle. You're talking to a communicator, so I know that challenge, man. It's interesting to navigate for sure. So, but you mentioned the two parts of the business that you're currently overseeing, and I know we'll dive into both. I want to start on the events side because we're just coming off. We're just fresh off of prime time. I was just saying in another episode too. It feels like it was either a day ago or like a month ago. I'm not really sure. I'm in this weird feeling of how long ago was prime time. But the first event, we did it all in house. I want to kind of first get your take on, having that new events team. It's obviously a very exciting time for Nationwide here. What's just sort of your initial takeaway from primetime and what that experience was like?
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things. One is, we did take the events program in-house, and we had been partnered with a partner for years that did a great job and taught us a lot of great things. But, we felt like, we wanted to practice what we preach. We tell our members, hey, they need to own the experience, all of these things, you got to train right. And we were kind of sourcing that out. So it was a great opportunity for us to take it in and practice what we preach. We had brought Melissa Stenson in, a few years back to help run some of our VIP events and some regional events. And she put together this just world-class team to help support her. And it's one of those things where I knew she was awesome at what she did, but you just never know how someone's going to be as a manager. And she brought in great people and then gave them direction and got out of their way and let them do their jobs. And I mean, the result was phenomenal. And again, this was our first one, right? So we had people that, what? We didn't really even realize, that's probably the best compliment. Right. It seems like the same thing. But we had a majority of folks came up and said, something's different. Something feels, something's cleaner, quicker, faster, more efficient. So, we got a ton of praise for that. But I think the opportunity for us is, we go into the future is to really own this and do different and unique things. So we're excited, really, really excited about that.
And I mean, the crazy thing is you see how quickly that team came together and just gelled. And it was awesome to kind of see the, sometimes some, areas of the business, you got to wait a little bit for results. They got to see it in person, in action as they were doing it. So it was cool to see the proof was in the pudding, if you will.
Yeah. And it's one of those
Prime
things,
time.
like I work with them we had meetings a couple of times a week leading up to it for months. But when you see, when, there's boots on the street and people are running around and everybody's calm and everything's working efficiently, I was humbled by, how incredible they handled it.
Yeah. How about on the, you mentioned a little bit some of the member feedback, obviously great to hear that, some of them didn't even recognize, but just from the experience in general, what was the feeling coming out of prime time for you from the membership?
Yeah, well, I mean, we think prime time was a huge success, right? Both for our members and for our vendors. But really it just felt like we were back,
Yeah.
Although we had, a show in Phoenix, this one just felt like it had more energy. And I think it had a lot to do with kind of what's going on in the market. Inventory is starting to level. So manufacturers came with some pretty aggressive programming. We had some really cool things going on, like in our luxury space, that focus continues. And we had SKS, we had, a Thermador monogram, Fisher and Paykel, like just really cool events going on the show floor for those folks that were engaged in luxury. As always, our member to member interaction, like that, that peer interaction is such a big piece of what we do. But we, like exclusive brands like Element Appliance, had a great show. So I'd say overall from a, for the member manufacturer kind of relationship, that was really strong. I'll tell you, I had one of our largest members tell me unsolicited, said, listen, I got up every single morning, with the birds to go to your nationwide learning academies. So these, NLAs, he said, I've been going to them and they just keep getting better and better and better. And I get up earlier and earlier and earlier just to be there. But he said the content just continues to wow, right? And it's, again, that kind of real world problem solving, like whether it's, a service leaders network or human resources, there's just so many different pieces of information that they can gain out of this.
Yeah.
I would say, we sat in a meeting where, we had some members, and I looked around the room and each member had, between 5 and 7 folks with them sitting at this meeting. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Usually just used to be just the principals and like the buyer came, but with kind of our expanded touch points, like I said, whether it's service or HR or, whatever it is, delivery and install, we're seeing our members bring more people from their organization that head up different parts of their organization to learn. And that's rewarding and challenging, right? We need to come up with, more and more content and solve more problems. But I was blown away at how many folks actual individual members brought.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it. That member example, again up earlier. When you go to a breakfast you see 7 a.m. on the schedule, and you're expecting it to be able to like just walk in. I'll walk in. I'll get whatever I want. Get right to the front of that book, and it's packed.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's a really kind of eye-opening at first experience the first time, and then you're like, well, you see what's going on there, and you get it. It's like they're engaged with the show, they're engaged with the content, and want to be up and talking with one another. And it was very much sort of that. And this kind of segues into the next question, but almost like a getting back to normal feeling for what primetime has always been like.
Right.
You think beyond this pandemic as things are turning around and things, but I know that too. That getting back to normal, back to the basics, that was a big push at this show, and we heard it on the main stage, and both when Tom was on stage and then you and Aaron took the stage as well. So talk about that a little bit about this message of sort of getting back to the basics as a retailer and why you guys were trying to drive that home.
Yeah. And when you say it, it sounds overly simplified, right? Hey, let's get back to basics, no problem. And to your point, we said it in the keynote, we said it from the main stage, and one of the things we said, and I said it to the group was, over the last several years, we could be less than perfect and still run this wildly successful business. So essentially customers just came in and said, if you have it, I don't care what color it is, I'm taking it, right? So we kind of, I wouldn't say fat and happy, but we created some bad practices or tendencies. I think about, how many dealers tell me they were holding inventory for customers. So they were overstocked with inventory, but they didn't have anything to sell because they were holding it for customers for this one last piece, making multiple trips to, the same consumer's home, taking your eye off kind of the extended warranty attachment, just like simple stuff that, things that they would do every single day that got them to where they are today. And so we said, you just gotta get back to basics. Like, look at your floor, look at your planogram. Over the last couple of years, they've been filling it with whatever they could, if they're even filling it, right? There could be it could just be a hole. But we joked from the main stage too, right? I think people were going into every single corner and recess of their warehouse and just pulling whatever they had out, putting it on the floor so there wasn't an empty space. And we said, raise your hand if you have a Harvest Gold refrigerator on your floor today, right? And unfortunately, there were a couple of hands that went up. So, just that type of thing that, how do we just, get back to focusing on the strengths that got you there?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And is that, you kind of mentioned it from the merchandising and what is on the show floor perspective. Is there other areas of the business that you think they can kind of focus more on or that should be given more attention right now that maybe weren't, over the past? Because not to say that business was easy, but to your point, if a customer was out looking for something, supply chain issues were a challenge. So it was almost like everyone was in this mindset of if you have it, I'll take it. And obviously as things get back, that's sort of not where we are anymore. But are there certain areas, whether it is on the show floor or is it other parts of the business that really need to be sort of emphasized more from the retail perspective?
Yeah, I would say almost across the board within their entire organization, it's time to focus on just getting back to your efficiencies, where, again, prior to the last 2 years, our folks were running these wildly efficient businesses that they knew exactly how many stops that truck was going to make. They were looking at attachment rates of, extended warranties. They were training, right? So the salesperson knew exactly what models they were going to push this week. They knew exactly what promotion was happening. And like I said, over the last couple of years, it just got easier to do a transaction. There was no sales involved. And so through the course of this, these last couple of years, I would say there's new folks in the store that don't know the old ways. They don't know, the process. And so what we've emphasized with all of our dealers is it's your business, run your business. Don't let the business run you. And again, I had another member that's a really large member said, I went down to my floor and just said, what are we doing? Like, what happened? And it's not one of those, like, I think they probably knew in the back of their mind that, hey, we got to get this right, but I'll do it tomorrow. Well, it's tomorrow. And so, really figuring out efficiencies in your, floor traffic or your on your floor, delivery, install, all of those things where you can get better and, utilize whether it's product training or sales training. That's where I think that their focus needs to be. The other area I'd say is probably advertising. Like, things are changing, like foot traffic is down and PMAPs are starting to come back, right? Promotional advertising prices are coming back. It feels like big box is gonna, they only have one lever, right? Their lever is, hey, we're gonna cut price.
Yep.
And so we've had, really successful businesses fighting that same fight for years, again, outside of the last couple of years. So we know that, but it's just kind of getting those muscles back in shape to do that. And so when we talk about, advertising, maybe it's not a big remodel advertising, but more focused on, customers that are coming in under duress and, replacement. So, focus on in stock, on display, that type of thing. And then even those ones that aren't coming in under duress or are more discerning, right? They're not just saying, hey, you've got it, I want it. They want to now know how the piece works or, they saw this other price. So you just need to be ready to engage a customer at that level.
It's another maybe bad metaphor, but it's kind of like the pandemic 15 that we all put on that we realized like, oh crap, we got to get back to the gym. Gyms are open, right? We got to go work out again. And it's not, there's not one set of body muscles that you work out. You got to work out the whole body. So it's, it's similar for the retailer, right? They might have gotten, a little relaxed in how they went about business over the last couple of years. Pandemic was going on and business was a little different, but now it's time to, all right, we'll get back to sort of what we were doing and rework those, the retail muscles, if you will, of how they had to fight for business and compete with the big box across the street, that sort of stuff. So I mean, it makes sense the way you're describing it.
Yeah, and it's as we have those conversations, I mean, and these conversations come from members as well. Like, there's not like, what'd you call me? They're like, oh my gosh, you know what? You're right. I do, and I think it just takes either, and again, some of this comes up in those peer-to-peer communications. I think that, when you hear it from somebody else that's been, fighting the fight, a couple of counties over, they go, oh, you know what? You're right. And so we've got a ton of tools in place to kind of help, get back to the gym. We've got the gym, we got all the equipment here. We just need, how do you get to use it?
Absolutely. Well, that's a great, kind of transition, because I want to dive into some of those things. You talk about the, getting the show floor right or getting your showroom right and showing the right product, that sort of stuff. I know we've got, I think to prime metrics and everything that has happened in that area. You talk about sort of the, the multi kind of versatile workout equipment that exists in gyms where you can do like 17 different workouts. Primetrics seems to be that sort of tool bench there. And
right,
we've got market, we've got the assortment rationalization and tool, and the POS benchmark, all that stuff that we're a couple years in now. So I mean, it's what are you seeing from the tool and how members are using it, and the benefits it sort of had?
Yeah, I will say this is one of those ones that's kind of been for Tom and I, it's been this passion project, for the last 5 or 6 years. And again, coming from the manufacturing side, and we both ran independent business on the manufacturing side. And so we would sit in meetings and, they'd say, hey, we ran this event over the weekend, Monday morning, come in. Lowe's would say, I sold this many. Best Buy would say, I sold this many. Depot would say, I sold this many. And we would just go, well, I don't know. I think we did good. I talked to 2 dealers. I think it did well. Like, there was no, and so unfortunately, independent retail is getting overlooked in some of those, in the Benton Harbors and Charlottes of the world, Louisville's of the world, where they're just not getting a seat at the table. Not because they're not really important to the business, and I could argue more important than big box, just because of mix, but because of lack of information. So it was just easy to go, okay, we know these 3 factors, let's go this way. And so as a result, we weren't getting the nod in inventory. It became apparent through COVID, inventory, and new product development and all of those things along the line. So as we built this out, we're up to, I think, $3.5 billion in retail sales coming in, and it's every category, every brand. And to your point, we've taken that, and instead of just kind of downloading all this information, hey, we got a bunch of numbers, we've put it into something that's kind of digestible. And so, whether you want to look at what your market looks like and who your competitors are and who's selling what, here's a tool for you. If you want to see what your point of sale is doing against the total, here's the tool for you. And then I think you mentioned that this assortment rationalization tool, I think, is probably one of the most unique and will be the strongest tool that we have in our toolbox for now. I mean, we're going to continue to build on this thing, but this assortment rationalization tool essentially takes the top 50 SKUs by category, and we don't just rank them by units, right? There's a algorithm in there that says, hey, this is the most productive SKU that you could put on your floor. It has every single price bucket, by the industry. So between $2.99 and $3.99, here's the volume being done there. And then you can put, the members lineup. So from 10 feet away, it looks like a checkerboard. You can see where the holes are, and you can see where the opportunities are. So, from a member standpoint, they can use that to say, okay, well, I have, this is the piece I have, but this is the number 1 selling piece. I can either go back to this manufacturer and negotiate a better price, or I can sub this one out. And then our merchants use that with the manufacturers to say, hey, if you want to be number 1, here's what needs to be true. We are super sensitive about the information. We sign NDAs with all of our members, so that we don't share individual information. But in total, you can say, hey, here's where the puck is, and here's where you are,
Right.
if you want to be. And then the manufacturer has a choice, as opposed to, in my prior life, it was we didn't have a choice. It was like, we're going to go this way, and hopefully, and then you try to fight for a SKU. We're seeing manufacturers actively engage our merchant team to say, what do you need? What needs to be true for us to be, 1 through 5, or we have this opportunity, or we have these parts, or we have this product. What can we build to really win in this space? So it's going to get so much better. But I think a couple things. One, scale alone, just the sheer volume that we have in there. When we first started it was manual. We were like, hey, just send us an Excel sheet or whatever. Now it's all, being funneled in. We're working with the POS partners way upstream, and they're sending us the information. And then we've taken the information and put it into these, like I said, digestible formats. And so instead of just getting a bunch of numbers, you're getting a report that says, here's what I want. Or if you want, hey, listen, I only want to see dishwashers, or I only want to see top load laundry, boom, you can do that. And so we actually are seeing our manufacturers really, really hungry for it, just because it never existed. And then the second part of it is, we're getting information on Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking that are traditionally not, they're sold through distribution, sold direct. They haven't really involved anyone in the independent channel, and we do 95% of the business, right? So,
Yeah.
So those luxury manufacturers are super engaged in saying, "Oh, okay, this is what our target is." So it's been really successful.
The cool thing is, like, on the manufacturer side, it seems like it's almost creating competition for them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like getting them excited about, like, all right, well, what can I do, and wanting to more actively work with, our teams and our dealers to improve their rankings, if you will, in the tool. But on the member side, I think one of the best examples I heard was, I believe it was at a regional event where there's a member who was very active with it. And I mean, the easiest way he described it was, it took all of the guesswork as a merchant out of his daily life. Like he could just, instead of saying, well, I think, this goes prior to, the couple of years that Primetrics has been around in this art tool, right? Is, you go around and you use your gut. What do you think works? What do you think your customers are going to want? And there's ways you could talk to them and things like that. But now to have hard data to go and make those decisions, and I'm sure something, think back to your retail days, you probably wish you would have had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the cool thing about it is it's just the facts. And from there, you can still use your gut, right? Like you can say, yeah, I like it, but I still like this piece better because of this, and this, and local market knowledge and all of those things. But it's funny you say that, because we call it art, the science of retail.
Yeah.
And so, there is a science behind it, but at the end of the day, you can still finger paint if you want.
I like that a lot. That's awesome. But I mean, what you mentioned, some of I know, things are way in the works and down the road and probably above both of our heads as far as, the possibilities and data and things like that. But what's kind of ideal state for what Primetrics is, or how it's used on both the member side and the manufacturer side?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say this, we're probably, just by nature, by virtue of our member type and base, today we're more heavily skewed from a volume standpoint to appliances. That said, we have hundreds of $1 million in mattress sales that are going through there as well. So, the short term, and I think we've worked out kind of this market, this arc, and this point of sale comparison, to where we can continue to scale that up, and, with excellence. That was one of the things that, as a group, we got together and said, there's all these things that we could do down the road, but let's perfect these in the process and the system. And that's where we are today. There's the next step is bringing that kind of mattress, furniture, and bedding, that piece into that same structure. Now we've got the bones, we can just put that meat on it. It's a unique business, all of those, because, in appliances, it's a SKU is a SKU is a SKU, and in mattresses, there's so many different variables. So, but we've got a system and matching, and some algorithms built into that can take like products and push them together. So we're down the path on building that up. And I think that is that will be really powerful in that space. And then, listen, we've talked about this. Maybe I won't mention any names, but we're going to be the best resource for independent retail sales, period. So regardless of the category. And it's something that, has been our North Star from day one. I mean, when, we didn't have anything, we're like, this is where we need to be. And it's not for any other reason than to get, to your point, better deals or better values, or, become a voice at the table for the independent channel within these, really important manufacturers' home offices. And then, we're always going to work on making it easier for our members to access the information, because we don't want to slide a big ream of paper with numbers on it. We want to have actionable things that can come out of it, because that's one of those, we always ask ourselves, so what? So, okay, here are all the numbers, so what? Well, we want to say, hey, here, do these 3 things and you could improve your business. So those are our goals, to make it, something that we can diagnose and then create, give the medicine, here's a prescription for solving it.
No, that's awesome. Well, to bring it full circle, I mean, you think kind of where career path started for you and what you're doing now. The passion is awesome to see, and the drive to, lead the teams that are working on these tools and things like that. And getting the tools in front of our members, and obviously on the event side, and helping members sort of bring it all together themselves. I got to be kind of cool from your seat right now to see what you're working on. And do you miss appliances at all? Do you miss merchandise?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's not like I'm out of, you're never out of it, right?
Right.
It's like The Godfather. But because, when I talk about real world challenges with our members, I mean, those challenges are with, whether it's it could be manufacturers, it could be marketing folks, so they're challenges that we're trying to solve for, relate right back to the businesses that we're in. So I don't feel like I've, maybe I'm not in the day-to-day firefight,
sure.
But I don't feel like I've been removed. And to your point, the passion, coming to this side of the business, 9.5 years ago, I haven't lost. And I Tom is the same way. I credit Tom with that too. Like, what we're doing every day to keep, trying to keep independent retailers not only in business but thriving. You can put your head on the pillow at night going, all right, we moved a little bit, closer to victory today. And it is every day's a fight, every day changes. But I think, that passion is what fuels us and hopefully this organization.
No, it's awesome to see. And it's infectious too, man. I mean that wholeheartedly. It's awesome to talk to you guys and pick your brains and, see what the team's doing. It's been a pleasure to not only cover, but be a part of as well. So this is a lot of fun. And I know, you got a lot still going on. So we'll end it there. And, certainly not the last time you'll be on the podcast for sure. So, but we appreciate you taking the time, PJ, and diving a little bit into it. It's cool to see both on the event side and the, the data and everything else we got going on for our members, what's going on. So we appreciate it.
I appreciate the time. Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Awesome. And thanks again to Patrick. Just a great conversation, a great, individual to be able to talk to and have as a resource here at Nationwide. And, I know that, he said it's awesome to get up and go to work every day for these members and seeing the ways he's able to impact their businesses and provide some benefit and help them, on a day-to-day basis is just awesome. So appreciate him taking the time to share some of that knowledge with us. And, as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.